Hola amigos y bienvenidos al canal. Me llamo Nuria y soy tu profesora de español. Today we're going to talk about 5 powerful tips that will make you speak Spanish fast. Trust me, these tips are a game changer. So let's go with tip number 1. Use fillers like natives. In Spanish, we Spaniards use filler words all the time. In English, we use like, things like that as filler words, but in Spanish we have pues, bueno, or bueno, pues. So you can even do a combination of the three of them. But if you want to learn the most common filler words and things that natives say, I have a series on the channel called Speak Like a Spaniard, in which I teach you all the tricks, filler words, sayings, and already made up sentences that Spanish people use on the daily. So head over to the channel to check them out. Number 2 is shadowing Spanish speakers. Now, when I was learning English, my favorite way of shadowing English speakers was by singing English songs. Some of my favorite groups were the Cooks and Arctic Monkeys, so I would just sing along and practice my pronunciation that way. So my best tip for you, if you want to learn Spanish the way I learn English, is through music, because it's fun, it's usually short, and it takes no effort really. So top tip is to shadow Spanish speakers with songs. You can sing to many different artists. So I will leave in the description down below a few groups of Spanish music that you can check, and I'll throw some of the 80 ones from La Movida Madrileña, which I think are more up to my liking, a little bit more rock style. And it's a great way to learn vocabulary and, again, filler words and to practice your Spanish. But if you don't want to do it with music, you can do it repeating some of the videos on my channel, like slow Spanish listening videos, in which you can repeat as I speak and a follow along manner, because you have the Spanish captions at the bottom. And if you still think it's very fast, there's an option on YouTube in which you can turn the speed even lower. So there is no excuse to shadow Spanish speakers. Tip number 3. This tip, it's very important. It is something that every beginner struggle with, and rightly so, and it's the differences between ser and estar. And it's key because if you want to be fluent in Spanish, you are going to need to know the differences between ser and estar. I do also have in the channel a 3-part series in where we dive in the uses of ser, the uses of estar, a comparison between ser and estar, and it comes with exercises for you to practice that you can go and download on the Buy Me a Coffee page. My tip number 4 is don't overthink grammar. And while I specifically said to know the differences between ser and estar if you want to sound like a native or you want to speak Spanish fluently, this tip, it's key, especially if you're a beginner, which is don't be shy, don't be afraid to make mistakes. The best way of learning is to practice. And the more you practice and correct your mistakes along the way, the faster you will improve. So I have a lot of people who tell me, oh, I'm just too scared of speaking, I'm just too afraid of sounding silly. Don't. That is the biggest mistake you can make if you want to learn Spanish or any language, as a matter of fact. You need to lose that shyness. You need to force yourself to speak. And there are many ways, as I explained in the channel before, in which you can do this. You can do these by doing a language exchange, which is usually my favorite thing to do because it's free. There's no commitments, there's no excuses, and you can meet new people, but be careful online because there's loads of random weird people out there. But saying that, there's even I'm sure local exchange, wherever you are or closer to you, but the easiest one is to do it online, in which you find somebody who wants to learn the language you speak and that most likely speaks the language that you want to learn. So making an exchange of, even if it's 20 minutes in one language, 20 minutes in another, can speed your language learning process. So this tip number 4, do not overthink the grammar and actually practice with somebody in a conversation. Note down any kind of vocabulary that you want to learn. Speak about what you would actually like to speak with people in that language. For example, I know a lot of the English classes, especially if they're in group, or the Spanish classes and they're in group, the topics are very particular, and maybe you're interested in other topics. So practice in the topics you want to talk about, learn the vocabulary about those topics, and practice with someone who's willing to listen and exchange with you their hobbies or their interest in your language. You can teach them new words, new sentences, new expressions, and they can do exactly the same for you. And again, it's free. If you, however, would like to spend some money, you can always get a conversation class with a native speaker, a tutor, or a teacher, which will also help you because it will not be much of an exchange. It will be you practicing. And if you only have 20 or 30 minutes, it's a very quick and fast way and probably cheaper than spending an hour in a class. And we have come to number 5, which is think in Spanish. And what do I mean with these? I know that some people say, oh, I have to have the sentence in my head and then I have to translate the sentence into the other language. Mistake. That is a mistake. And why is that a mistake? You might be wondering. Well, it is a mistake because a lot of the times sentences are not able to be translated word by word or will make sense. So by you thinking in that language, you avoid the pitfall of having to think in one language, translate it, and then, that it just takes so much mental effort. I know a lot of the times, especially with beginners and people who are learning Spanish, they question the grammar. But why is this? But why is that? The grammar is the grammar. I'm not going to change it, and you cannot try to find a relation to the English grammar because a lot of the times it's not the same. So that's only going to confuse you and make your language learning harder. So if you're learning the grammar, learn the grammar and start thinking and using it and applying it in the language that you're learning. This will, as I said, avoid a lot of headaches for you and will make your process faster and more enjoyable. I know particularly with some of the students that I have, they question the grammar. No, but in English it's not like this. But why is it feminine and why is it masculine and why is it like this? Stop that immediately. Just learn it, start applying it, start practicing, and you'll go so much faster. All right, this brings me to the end of the video. Start practicing these tips and let me know how it goes in the comments below. Give me a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any of the future videos coming. And until then, I'll see you on the next one. Hasta pronto!